Welcome everyone. I can't see you all, but I'm sure hopefully you're all doing okay. And feel free to leave your camera off or bring it on if you wanna, if you feel comfortable. Really up to you. This is our second event this year, and I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners and the custodians of the land on which we are zooming in today. I'm calling from the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I would like to invite everyone to reflect on the owners of their land from which sovereignty was never ceded. So welcome again, everyone. Today we have a talk from one of our committee members, Shazia, who is going to tell us about her experience and the workshops that she attended during the 2021 RStudio conference. And in particular, she will share more insights because she was able to attend some workshops thanks to a diversity scholarship that she got. Where not everyone got access to those workshops, so I'm really curious to know what happened. Before I get Shazia to start, I would like to tell everyone that we are always looking for new people to get involved into the committee. And there are some people, some represented from the committee today. There's myself, Shazia, Alex, Nikki, and Dai. And sorry if I don't see anyone else who is there. And the reason why we are looking for people and why would you join? Well, for instance, just to get experience in running event and thinking of new ideas to run event, and for example running on Meetup, and hopefully we will get soon in person as well, so everything should be better. It also a great way to get some public speaking and leadership practice because you're part of a committee, you get to present to an audience, and again hopefully we will be able to come back in person, and also just to learn about how a not-for-profit organization works and runs. So it's a really good experience to be part of a committee. It's also a great way to bring your ideas and how I think we need new ideas after this whole COVID year, which is not finished, but definitely we need new ideas in how we can keep supporting and keep the art community active and awesome as it has always been. Also another way you can get to know people by being part of an inclusive committee. And also we have people from academia and industry. So if you're looking to get in touch with that diverse, even if you're new to Melbourne or new to a place and you would like to get in touch with new people, it's definitely a great way to meet and talk to us. And definitely just general exposure and networking, because again, hopefully we'll be back in person soon. If you think about, oh, it's really hard, I'm really busy, I don't have time to join a committee, definitely it's true that these things take part of your time, but we have roles which do not require too much of your time sometimes, maybe just a few hours a month when we have to set up the event. And usually we meet once a month among ourselves. So for instance, if you would like to look after the Github page, so you can help us with that. If you're new to Git, we are happy to teach you as well, so you can learn while you do things. If you would like to get more exposure into becoming a social media officer, so with live tweeting, promoting events, it's a great way to try that as well. And of course, there are also roles that require more commitment. So once you get more exposure to the group, you will be able then to take on a role like a president, secretary, or the treasurer, which are normally roles that require more commitment, which can vary. It's definitely a good way to start with some easier, less commitment roles so that you get exposed to how the whole group works. Please get in touch in every way you can. We are on Meetup. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter. Even you can write in the chat now. You can write a message to us right now, and we can get in touch with you. Before we start with Shazia as well, I would like to mention 2 job openings which you recently got. So some people got in touch with us. So one is from Betfair. Betfair is I think it's an online betting gambling company. and they're looking for a reporting analyst, and they're really keen to make their team more diverse and to get some new fresh minds into their team. So this is the link. The other job openings, I will let Nikki talk about it because Nikki works at PwC.
Hi guys, so PwC is currently hiring for analytics consultants within the consumer markets industry, looking for levels consultant, senior consultant and manager. And one of the things I really enjoyed about working there is a really nice, inclusive team, and there are a lot of female focused initiatives that have been set up around the analytics capabilities to try and help promote females in the workspace. So if you're interested or would like to know more about it, please contact either the R-Ladies Twitter or contact me directly, and I'll post the links to both this one and to the Betfair in the chat.
Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, please feel free to contact us or talk to Nikki to hear more about that. And I also want a reminder, take a note about this short URL to join our community on Slack. So we have a Melbourne Slack channel where you can just ask question about our related question. Or for instance, I don't know, if you go into a job interviews and you are not that experienced and you want to know what question you should ask, what things you want to be aware of when you look for a job, feel free to ask all those sort of things. Or simply like, I would like to suggest this person to speak at this meetup, or I would like to speak for you to your next event. Anything that you would like to share with us, it would be great to grow the community on Slack. And finally, now it's time for Shazia. So Shazia Ruybal will tell us about her experience at the RStudio conference. So Shazia is a postdoctoral scientist at WEHI, between the WEHI and the Burnet Institute, and she's working on infectious disease epidemiology, which includes malaria and COVID-19 work. And she's also, as I mentioned, a co-organizer and secretary of the R-Ladies Melbourne.
All right, great. I guess before we start, I just wanted to get a sense from everybody who's here, your level of R expertise. I guess if you consider yourself to be completely new or beginner or advanced, maybe pop it in the chat, or you can use the reactions maybe if you want to put I don't know, a heart for like love R, or a little surprised face for maybe not so much. Okay, intermediate, awesome. So I feel like the slides that I'll present today might assume some knowledge, but they're all available, so feel free to then go back and yeah, there's links and everything that you can click throughout. So I figured I'd start a little bit just giving a bit of background on me, and thanks Anna for the intro. So my background, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Australia. I'm originally from Ecuador in South America and the US. I have a bachelor's in arts and biology, which I got at Colorado College in the US. And then I came to Melbourne. I worked for a few years in the US and then came to Melbourne to do my PhD in genetic epidemiology in malaria. Now I'm a postdoc scientist, as Anna mentioned. And as Anna also mentioned, my research focuses on epidemiology, different flavors of epidemiology. So applied epidemiology pre-COVID, used to travel often to Papua New Guinea and other malaria endemic sites. Also work in genomic epidemiology, mostly malaria, but of course now also COVID-19, as most infectious disease people are. I use R a lot for data processing, visualization, communication, dashboards, more recently Shiny. So that's kind of what I'm learning now. And then also, I guess, sharing I probably said that wrong. The slides. This is my first time doing those kinds of slides using R Markdown. So that was fun and definitely recommend. They look really nice and they were fun to make as well. You guys already know this, as Anna said, and then there's just some links there if you'd like to kind of get in touch for whatever reason, feel free. I love this artwork from Alison Horst. This is kind of my R journey in a nutshell, and I feel like most people would probably relate as well. You kind of start off like, oh wow, what is this? And then you get a little bit comfortable, and then you realize that there's so many things you don't know. That was kind of the journey for me, learning, mostly teaching myself during my PhD, but then also joining Twitter, the R community, and then also I love this image. Also R-Ladies, fantastic community, definitely very supportive and inclusive. And I think just a wealth of resources, not just R-Ladies Melbourne, but just the wider R-Ladies community as well. All right, so getting into the conference. So this year it was different, obviously, because it was virtual, and it was 24 hours. And so what they did was have 2 12-hour slots of the same talks being repeated for people in different time zones. So they had 3 tracks or I guess common themes of talks: learning, language interop, and visualization. And there were basically a talk in each of these streams, almost always happening simultaneously. And so you could kind of catch the talk that you missed 12 hours later if you wanted, or they're also all pre-recorded. And so although the title of this might be a little bit misleading, I'm not actually going to summarize the conference because all of the 55 talks are available for free. I've put in the link there. They're all on the RStudio website. But I thought I'd still mention some honorable mentions of talks that I really enjoyed. One of the keynote talks was about your public garden and reflecting on how and why we should cultivate our digital gardens. And so our digital garden being websites, blogs, showcasing our work online, whatever it may mean for you. That was a really kind of not an R specific talk, but very just really interesting reflections to kind of make you think about how you want to think about your work. There was also a keynote talk by John Byrne Murdoch from Financial Times. So many of you may be familiar with a lot of his Financial Times graphics. He's been quite a large voice in the COVID-19 data visualization communication space. And so he gave a keynote talk on sort of lessons that he's learned from his experience of communicating COVID-19 data, and also communicating and visualizing data in a way for people to actually understand versus misinterpret the data as well. So obviously in COVID-19, that was a huge challenge. There was an interesting talk about ggplot2, and actually not the great things, but going through the common mistakes that people make and also common misunderstandings of certain plot aesthetics and things. I'm not sure how many of you use ggplot2, maybe you're tidyverse or base people, not sure. But in any case, that was a really informative talk for those who do use ggplot. Some other talks on how to and how not to make data visualization, sort of a recap of a trial and error process. That was a really great talk as well. A talk on how to make an R package. That was also interesting. A lot of us are probably more knowledgeable than we think on how to make R packages. A lot of the code that we probably already have could actually be packaged into an R package. So that was an interesting talk that made me think maybe I should consider doing something like that. There was another sort of conceptual talk as well about how we learn and how we teach. So that was quite interesting because it went through sort of help documentation and support resources that there are for learning R. And sometimes you get an error message and you just have no idea what's happening. And so you go to Google and you copy paste. And so how can you actually make resources that you develop or code that you share or data that you're communicating, how can you make that easier for people to interpret? So that was also really interesting. And I believe that's her area of research as well. So it was quite an interesting talk. There was also a talk for those who might teach and or build tools on how to use the package Learn R for interactive tutorials and for virtual teaching. So I think this was obviously something that just boomed with online classes during COVID-19 and most people having to give their classes in online formats, and how do you package that in how do you upload 1 million PowerPoints? Some people were doing websites, course websites, and things like that. So that was a really interesting talk. And I'll actually touch on LearnR later on, because that was one of the topics of the workshops. There was another talk on how to make your blogdown website multilingual. So that was also really cool. I obviously speak English and Spanish, so that's something that has been on my to-do list for a really long time that I haven't done, but it was nice to see how easy it is actually in something like the blogdown package. Also something I'll be talking about in this in the workshop talk. And then I've also just put in some links of some blog posts that I came across. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. I would encourage you to just go check out the talks. There's plenty. I also went to some previous years, and there's just so many resources. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes. So definitely go and have a look. So as I kind of alluded to before, this talk is not really about the virtual conference. I'm actually going to be talking about the Diversity Scholar workshops, which occurred right after the conference. So there were 2-day workshops, and they were only available to those that were that received the diversity scholarships. So that was part of that scholarship was to have access to this content, which obviously in the end is free anyways, but sort of have that extra interaction after the conference, and was quite amazing. So yeah, like I said, these are not necessarily available on the RStudio website, but I'll link many of the resources in this talk. So yes, I felt very lucky to have been one of the recipients. I think there were maybe 50 or 60 people globally that were selected. So that was pretty cool. And one of the things that I shared in my application was that I would love to share what I learned with the R-Ladies Melbourne community. So I'm really happy to be sharing that with all of you today. So there were 2 workshops that were carried out across 2 days. So the first workshop was called Introduce Yourself Online by Alison Hill. Some of you in the community may remember when she gave a talk at an R-Ladies Melbourne meetup, what seems like ages ago. So this is kind of it's a different talk to what she gave here, but she's very well known for sort of website tools and things like that. So that's the first topic. And the second topic of the workshop was what they forgot to teach you about teaching R, which was not mostly for educators, but there's definitely lots of resources for those who teach R, but I think also lots of resources for those of us who maybe are learning R as well, how best to learn and resources. So just a disclaimer that everything that I'll be sharing today is summarized from these workshop materials. So I've linked the workshop websites there. And yeah, I won't get through most of it today. There's so much information there. So I would really, really encourage you to check them out if you're interested. All right, so going to the first workshop, I'm going to recap essentially some of the main takeaways from the workshops. So the first one, Alison basically gave us a few options for introducing ourselves online. We did have a lot of great discussions on why we would want to introduce ourselves online. I think most of us can see the value of that now. You know, there's already platforms like LinkedIn or Twitter or even GitHub where people can find you. I don't know how many of you, if any, have a personal website. There's a few options here that I think many of you might want to implement. So the first option, which is incredibly simple, you could probably do it while I give this talk, is to actually use your GitHub profile like your name tag. So Alison called it sort of your name tag. That's like a very low risk, if you'd like, or very easy option. The next level up is like your business card. And there's this new package called Postcards that kind of allows you to do something similar to a business card. The next level up, having a cup of coffee with someone, that's how she was framing it, is the distill package. So that can be used to make websites or just documents, whatever you need to introduce yourself. And then the next level up, the happy hour, is blogdown, which some of you may or may not be aware of, but that's a package that's commonly used to make websites. So yeah, I guess I kind of asked website, but how many of you have a GitHub profile? Can you put up a heart if you do. Okay, so maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I think this is kind of a new feature of the GitHub profiles, but everybody in their GitHub profile has a README repository. And now it's a special repository where whatever you put in the README markdown document becomes your short bio on your page. So this is kind of what it would look like. So this is your kind of typical GitHub. I hope you can kind of see that. This is your profile picture, your 2 sentences bio, and then now this README, whatever you put in the README will pop up in this space here. So it's kind of like whoever comes to your GitHub profile can kind of see a really quick bio of yourself. And it doesn't require you to do anything other than write a bio, which is probably not as simple as it sounds. It's actually quite hard, which you'll see in the next slide. So I attempted to do that today so that I could give a minimal example in this talk. So that's mine. It took me a really long time to write. I think it's really hard for us to write bios on ourselves. But anyways, that's kind of what it looks like. So this is my GitHub. I'll probably be finessing that, to be honest, a lot. But anyways, that's kind of what I've written, and I've given a link there if you'd like to just see how I did it on GitHub, and then you can emulate it on your own GitHub as well. But yeah, very cool, very simple. You don't actually even have to do anything in R. All right, so the next option up, which is slightly more advanced and does require R and RStudio. Have any of you used Postcards before? No. All right. Okay, this was new to me as well, but it's actually quite cool and also very simple, or relatively simple, I should say. So this package is quite new, I gathered, and you can install it. So I'm not demoing because we obviously don't have time, but I've put some of the code here. It's actually really simple. You just have to install the package and then load the library, and all you need to put as a command is create postcard. And there are a few templates that you can do. So there's this template, for example, Hoya, which I'll show you a demo in the next slide. But there's like 4 options, I think. And they're essentially, you can kind of use this, and it's in our Markdown format. You can use them as sort of a landing page if you'd like. And you can link it up to your GitHub, and then it just becomes your landing page, similar to how you would see my slides. It just becomes a link that you can send people to. So that's a simple option. There's a few resources which I've linked, and then also in the workshop materials, you can actually work through it yourself if you'd like to do that. So this is an example of what one of them would look like. So this is a very minimal example of the Hoya template, and so obviously I didn't add a bio or anything, but you could kind of choose to put a little bit of text, whatever you want, emojis, whatever, it's kind of, and as an R Markdown document would be. And then you can choose to link key links to your other profiles, or LinkedIn or GitHub, email, website, whatever you'd like. And it's quite easy to set up. So once you create Postcard, it gives you the default, and then all you have to do is edit the information and make it specific and customize it to your information. All right, so then the next level up, which is slightly more advanced. How many of you have or have not used the distill package? So hopefully a lot of what I'm giving you today will actually be really useful information. I'm very glad. Okay, neither had I, so don't worry. I think it's been revamped quite recently. So it's something that I think Allison's been working a lot on getting a next version of the package. So this is your cup of coffee intro. So it's a website that's created only using our Markdown. So you literally just have to install the package distill, and you can do it all in RStudio. You can customize it to what you need. There's, I'm not gonna, again, show you how to do that because it would be its own talk just in and of itself. I think if there's interest, feel free to get in touch with us. I think I could potentially give that talk, or we could find someone to give it. The nice thing is they can be deployed directly through your GitHub pages, or Netlify, which is another hosting service. And I've just popped a bunch of resources on this slide because I obviously don't have enough time to show you how to do that. But there was this blog post that I found about how to set it up in less than 30 minutes. So none of you have a personal website, so maybe a challenge would be to see if you can actually set it up within the 30 minutes as the blog post claims. And then I put this link also I found with some inspiration. So there's sort of a collection of different distill websites, and you could potentially look at their code, their source code, and see and sort of emulate things that you like or dislike as well. So this is a minimal example, and obviously I've done the minimal here, but it kind of shows you the next level up of that postcard. So now we kind of have this header, also this footer, you can kind of customize colors, and then you can have a menu. Sorry, I don't know how clear that is, but there's essentially a home link in the menu, an about me link, and then a GitHub little button. And then you can also make these sort of drop down menus, so you can kind of add levels of complexity as you need, or you can actually just keep it 1 page or 2 page, whatever you'd like. And the nice thing is it's an R Markdown document. So if you're already used to using R Markdown, then it's kind of, you can essentially customize it as you'd like. It's also, I've seen, it's also been used to share sort of scientific articles. So sort of tutorials, how-tos, SOP, standard operating procedures, how-to guides and things like that. So there's other use cases for this, not just a personal website. And then the next screenshot is just that sort of next menu link. So the about me, I just used a different postcard template. So that also actually shows you one of the other postcard templates, which is a little bit more complex than that first simple option. And that gives you the option to give a bio, to lay out your education and lay out your experience as well. So kind of like a CV look, whereas this one's more of a business card look. So definitely would encourage you to play around. This took me literally like, I think 15 minutes using the workshop materials. So if you do go to those links and kind of work through the activities, you can kind of try it out for yourself. All right, so then the more advanced option, have any of you, well, I'm assuming you haven't used Blogdown given nobody has a website, but has anyone heard of Blogdown or wanted to use it? All right, so I actually have a Blogdown website. After I attended Allison's talk, I was actually attempting to make my own when she came to Melbourne, and I remember pinning her down and being like, I have a few Blogdown questions, please help me. And so I'm in the process of trying to find time to update it. So I'll show you one of the new Blogdown themes that she presented at this workshop in just a little bit. So Blogdown is kind of that happy hour next level introduction. And then there are websites that are created using R Markdown, but they also need to use Hugo, which I won't try and explain because I don't think I fully understand it. But essentially, it's not just a standalone website like Distill is. You still would need Hugo on the background to kind of convert everything into HTML and sort of your website structure. Again, just like the Distill website, they can be deployed using GitHub pages or Netlify. And then the nice thing, the pro about Blogdown is it allows almost infinite customization of your site if that's something that you wanted, but it does require Hugo, I keep wanting to say it the Spanish way, Hugo. And then it requires a bit more advanced kind of coding knowledge and sort of deploying knowledge as well. The pros, again, of course, are customization. Then if you just kind of want to get started, Distill might be the better option. I think there's lots of Blogdown websites and resources, and Alison Hill also has so many blog posts on Blogdown. So I've linked her newest one, which I think came out a couple of months ago, which is kind of the Blogdown update So if you wanted to get started, that's probably the one you'd want to look at. And then I will just shout out to the apparel theme. And this is something that Allison shared with us for the first time at the workshop. So we were kind of the guinea pigs of finding any bugs or kind of trying it out for the first time. And this is what the theme looks like. So it's really, really nice. If you've ever seen any of her stuff, I mean, she's aesthetically just amazing. All of her slides always look beautiful. And so this theme is just like fabulous. You would kind of just need to customize colors and fonts, and then kind of you're ready to go. So I would definitely plug that template here. I think it's now officially live, but just kind of go to the links. And then there's a demo site here, which you can explore as well. And I should say that for those who blog, that I don't know if anybody is a blogger here, I'm definitely not. But for those who do like to blog or want to start writing blog posts, I think blogdown, obviously as the name implies, is probably the way to go. And there's lots of really nice customizations for blog posts and things like that in this theme. All right, so then it was quite timely that there was a discussion on the We Are R-Ladies Twitter feed, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, about actually blogdown versus distill. So I kind of put that up here because it's a really nice, made lots of resources for people to get started with blogdown, and one of the specific themes, which was academic theme. But as Alice is saying, it's really become really hard to use. And so this apéro theme hopefully will solve a lot of those things. If all of this is scaring you, and you even those who are intermediate could probably tackle this, if you still feel a little bit intimidated, then maybe distill is the way to go if you don't really need such customization or so much content. So here's a breakdown of that. And then also in this thread, there was a list of R-Ladies blogs. So I just kind of shared it here as well, because I feel like that's a great way to see, to kind of get to know others in the community, but also to get inspiration for your own blogs or your own sites if you wish to do them. And then I'll also just plug that if you are on Twitter and you're not following this account, that you should, because there's a rotating curator of the Twitter feed every week. And so it's a different person. So the content is just very different every time. And it's, lots and lots of resources that are shared every day in this account. All right, so that kind of wraps up workshop 1. I think we're kind of all right on time. And I'll give you a bit of a recap on workshop 2, which was a complete shift in focus. So it was quite nice to have sort of both topics. This workshop was about what they forgot to teach you about teaching R. And so it's really relevant, I think, to anybody who's either teaching R, whether it's in a data science course. I'm not entirely sure people's backgrounds who are with us today, but whether you teach data science or you teach R to your students or you want to learn R yourself, a lot of the topics covered in the workshop were really, really helpful. All right, so some of the topics that she went into were some interesting best practice kind of ideas on live coding, and also some general teaching tips. So she's done a lot of research in this area on how people learn. So it was quite interesting. I'll share some of those with you in the next slides. And then the next part of it was kind of the practical part of it, which was what tools are available to help you and aid you when you teach. And so some of the main ones she went over were RStudio Cloud. Have any of you used RStudio Cloud before? Sorry, I got tired at this stage and forgot to do my little prompt slides. Have any of you used RStudio Cloud? Okay, so Great. I feel like I'm imparting a lot of knowledge to this group, so I'm very happy about that. Great. And then she also went through Learn R tutorials, which are another package that you can use to actually build your own interactive tutorials using R. And I just put this kind of side note. I'm not an educator per se, but I do work obviously with R-Ladies outreach and then with my own kind of students and research. So it was really, really useful for me. I think if I were actually giving courses like an intro to data science course or something, it would be even more useful. So I think if you're in that space, I would really highly recommend going through the full workshop materials. Yeah, I did do one prompt. How many of you teach R stats? Anybody? Okay, we've got a few people. So definitely recommend perusing the workshop materials, because I'm only going through really the kind of the tip of the iceberg of materials that she provided. So the first kind of conceptual discussion and discussion that we had was about how to teach. So she sort of had this quote, which I loved, which was, "Let them eat cake first." And so Mine was describing how we learn, and basically made the point that if you see this image of this delicious cake, you're obviously going to be more motivated and want to learn how to make it more than you would than if you just see this boring recipe with words and lines and no visual kind of prompts. And so that was to make the case that why do we teach R? And this isn't to say that those who do teach here teach it in a boring way, but it tends to be really, really dry. If I remember back to my first intro to R course, however many years ago, it's not fun. It's not fun, it's confusing, it's overwhelming. You don't really see the purpose, and you don't actually get much. It's not necessarily immediately useful for you. And so that was a lot of what she went through, that we should actually be, sorry, I'm going to go to the next slide. We should actually be teaching students the meaty part first, like show them the cake first, and then build up to it. And so that was kind of the example of here, sort of showing the plot first, and then going through with the students, how do you actually build up to that plot, and going through the code line by line, versus explaining tidyverse first, and versus explaining ggplot second, and or sorry, ggplot specifically, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was, yeah, I guess that was a really interesting way to think about it. And I have experienced this myself, and I'm sure some people could also provide experiences. When you do teach, for example, my undergrad students or grad students, it's so much better when you actually give them data that is their own, versus just kind of online data sets or whatever the base are. One is empty cars or whatever, it's just not that fun. And yeah, also thought that I'd plug the penguin package, which is the cutest. All right. So the other topic of discussion was about live coding. So Mine made the case that you should live code early and often. And that's kind of what I'm doing now, but actually with my RStudio open and doing it live. And then one thing we talked a lot about was how to talk through your code. How do you actually read code? Everybody pronounces things differently. And then also, if you're live coding, you're very likely to make a mistake as you're live coding, which is not a bad thing, because that's actually a learning experience for people, not only to see that you also make mistakes, but also that you how you solve it in real time, versus everything's so well thought out and it's perfect, and that's not actually real life or how it is when you start coding.
Sorry, Shazia, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What do you mean with live coding? Like not thinking before the whole thing and just do as you go, like just following your thought process and code?
So like when you're actually teaching a tutorial, like actually going through and coding it live versus just giving them either an R Markdown file to work through, which is the next point, which is that sometimes context matters. So sometimes giving an R Markdown file is actually better than live coding if you have, for example, people in the room who are at different R levels, and some people might be following, but for others, it might just be too fast. So yeah, that was something just to think about. Oh yeah, Mina was great. That was the first time I had ever really seen any of her talks, but she's amazing. And there's so many resources that she's also linked in her slides and stuff. So I would definitely recommend looking through them. Another point was made, which for those who do teach, and especially in the context of kind of online classes, whether you do live coding, which then means, if your internet's down, it won't work, something might happen, technology always fails, whether you can do pre-recorded screencasts, that should say, where you actually record your screen as you're doing things, and then you actually just narrate as you go, as you're giving the tutorial or teaching a topic, for example. So today, if I would have done a demo, I could have actually included a video and narrated it to you as to what's happening. Could have been an option. Also, I think this is, I'm sure we all know this already, but there are, of course, different learning styles. Not everyone learns the same. So kind of taking into consideration that some people are visual, some people are better at doing themselves, others are better at teaching others or working in groups versus working solo. So kind of just switching that up. And for those who do give classes, she went through a bunch of ideas for creative activities, which I haven't really included here. But one of them, which I thought was quite funny, and I've actually seen on Twitter a bit, is the ugly plot kind of challenge. So we did this in the workshop, and one of the activities was make an ugly plot, which is obviously so counterintuitive to what you're usually trying to do. So that was it was fun because it proves to yourself that you know how to do things. So for example, I don't know, let's make the background of this black, and then the text is black, and so you can't see anything. But how do you actually do that? By coding. So that was a kind of a cool example. So definitely recommend going through some of those materials. And then a few other extra tips along those lines, which she went through, was about in the context of teaching online, for example, in COVID times, or even if things remain virtual, how do you provide instant and timely feedback for online courses? Because they're often faster than you can keep up with grading. And so one of the things that we talked about a lot was, how do you teach students to find help? So it's one of those topics that aren't actually really taught when you learn R, but it's actually a skill to be able to Google your problem and to find a solution. And then also how to actually post a question, like on Stack Overflow, for example. So I just included that little cute figure or little image from Alison Horst, which is making the case that we should be teaching students, and not just students, but we should actually be learning ourselves how to ask for help and how to make reproducible examples. And there's a few packages which I should have maybe linked, but I forgot to, which can help you make a reproducible example of your issue so that people can help respond and sort of help you out so that you can find the support that you need. All right, so I'm close to the end. The final topic that we discussed was more about the practicality of some of the tools. So I kind of alluded to this before. And one of the tools that we learned about, but also just used, so in the entire workshop, everything was done in RStudio Cloud. And not just for teaching kind of classes, but I've even started to use it to teach my students or to provide some kind of initial environment of a workable kind of workable environment. So what it does is it removes the need for people to have to install RStudio packages on their own laptop. So I mean, anybody who's worked in R has probably had an issue where you had to update a package, you had to update R, and then nothing worked, none of your packages worked, blah, 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 nightmare story. RStudio Cloud removes all of that because you basically, this is what a project looks like in the RStudio Cloud online. So you actually create the project. So this is an example project. And then you load all of all of the packages that you will need to do the analysis, and you choose the R version that you want to use. And so what you have here is people can actually click and create a clone or a copy of that project. And instead of spending the first, I don't know, 2 hours trying to get it all up and running, they can actually just dive straight into analysis or whatever visualization or whatever needs to be done. And so that was, again, going back to that, making it fun to learn, versus making it tedious, having to install packages and whatever. And so the way that she did a lot of the activities was to have our markdowns that were already ready to go, but we actually had to fill in the blanks, for example, and then create our own plots. So that's a way to kind of give someone the recipe, but they still have to bake the cake, if you'd like, to go with that metaphor. So yeah, highly recommend RStudio Cloud. I guess the one thing I should say about that is that there are some limitations in terms of kind of free accounts and pricing and things like that. So that's definitely something to look at if you were thinking of using it not heavily, but yeah, quite often. Not sure, those who are here that said that they used it, do you just use a free account, or do you have sort of a more advanced account for some of those things? And then the free account, but can apply for institutional access. Yeah, so I think just something to think about. As I mentioned, I've started using it just to create an environment where my students can kind of dive straight in, versus like having to install things, especially when I haven't been on site at work so much. It makes it a bit easier for them to kind of just get started. So definitely something to check out. There is a free account that you can play around with, and you could do plenty with just the free account for sure. All right, so the next and final kind of slide from that workshop was about Learn R. So have any of you heard about the package Learn R by any chance? So this is a package that allows you to create interactive tutorials using Markdown and within an actual R Markdown document structure. And I mean, I would not be the right person to give more info on this, but I've put in all of the links to the resources materials at the bottom as well. And then one other point to make is for those who are making Learn R, in case you didn't know this, there's also a grade this package, and it allows you to kind of automate grading of an R Markdown. So if you've built the R Markdown document and you know what you're asking the students to do in each of the lessons, you can then also have it automatically grade based on the correct answer. Obviously, there's lots of things to consider with that, is how easy it is to grade things that are open-ended and how flexible that is. So definitely recommend checking out the talks, specific talks on that. And then I've also included the link here for RStudio Cloud has Learn R tutorials within the RStudio Cloud system. So there's lots of learning tools to learn R within that RStudio Cloud, and also using the Learn R tutorials. So I've put that link here as well, which is kind of a good way if you're developing it to see how it's done, but also the converse, if you just want to learn more about R, it's a great way to just dive in and get started. All right, so I'll just recap a bit of the workshops and kind of open it up for discussion. So the workshop the first one from Allison, introduce yourself online. There's sort of 4 options that range from complexity. So depending on how comfortable you feel, you can kind of try a few of them or not. At a minimum, I would say you should maybe try the postcards. It's so easy, and it's really cute, and a nice way to just kind of have a landing page for yourself, which is always a good thing. And it's a really quick and simple way to actually showcase your R skills as well without even having to say it. Just the fact that your website's made in R is also quite a cool thing. And then workshop 2, which was what they forgot to teach you about teaching R. Lots and lots of resources and discussion and concepts to think about in terms of how we teach and how we learn, and how we can best teach R to people to make it fun, to make it interesting, and to make it relevant as well. And then a lot of activities. If you go through the activities, you can actually interact with the RStudio cloud kind of projects, and also the Learn R tutorials. You can go through them yourself and kind of see what happens if you get a wrong answer, if you get a right answer, how does it kind of build the tutorial in that sense. So yeah, that's it from me. I will just thank you all, and I'll acknowledge the 2 workshop leaders for really an amazing experience. I had such a great time, even though it was like 2 a.m. in Melbourne. I actually woke up for them and attended, and so it was amazing. And also just very thankful that I was selected as one of the diversity scholars. And then, yep, also thank you for your attention. And I'll open it up for questions and discussion.
Thank you so much, Shazia. This was awesome. Yeah, thanks for the huge effort in this ecosystem of packages and links, and thank you so much. Does anyone have any question?
There's definitely lots, I guess, linked on the slides as well, so I would recommend you going there. And then also my slides are just like scraping the surface of what the workshops actually were, so I definitely would recommend going through those materials as well.
Yeah, I have a question, maybe if there's no other one at the moment. So you said that, yeah, you put a lot of links in the slides, and you said that there's no actual recording or anything about the workshops online, apart from the links that you said here, or all the workshop material is in one website, or not really?
Yeah, so I wish I could figure out how to share it, but so what they've done is actually create, I think one of the websites is the Apero theme, maybe, I can't remember now, but they're basically, they're websites which kind of show you exactly what I showcased today, with all the material, the activities, the slides linked as well. And they're all kind of encapsulated in that workshop website, which has, day 1, talk 1, day 2, whatever. So you could essentially go through it. You could essentially go through it as if you were doing the workshop. Obviously, you don't have the live, aspect of, I guess, asking questions and stuff. But I feel like both of the workshop leaders would be more than happy to be contacted, or you can post on Twitter, and I'm sure people will respond.
Yeah, thank you. Also, great slides. They look really awesome.
It was fun to, I mean, I feel like I almost didn't, and then I was like, no, I should. This is the perfect time to learn, because I feel like science talks aren't that easy to just do in our Markdown. So I was like, this is a good opportunity to learn. So, and I'm glad I did. It was really, it's fun, and I feel like there's so many things that I don't even know yet that you can do. I see something come through the
Maybe
chat.
You can mention how you made the slides.
Oh, thanks, Alice, and thanks, Jocelyn. Thanks for coming. Ines, yes, I used RStudio and R Markdown, but I used the if you Google that kind of R Markdown, there's tons of resources as well. There is an intro. I'll stop sharing. so that I can find that link, because there's also a slide deck from Allison that I actually followed, or I learned a lot from to do these. So I'll try and find it, which is from, I think, it's from an RStudio workshop, actually. I think 2019 or something. Oh, it's just loading, and I'll pop it in the chat. She's got some beautiful slides. I feel like you can just peruse her GitHub and copy paste.
Yeah, she has some amazing ones all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's,
yeah, sorry.
okay. I was just gonna say that's a great starting point if you wanted to give it a go, Ines. Sorry, Anna.
Awesome. Oh, no, I was just wondering that we will be sharing the slides, and I guess if you're okay, Shazia, we could also share the R Markdown so that people can.
Yeah, it's on my GitHub. You can see it on the GitHub repository.
Oh, it's already there. Yep.
Yeah.
I think we share the slides, but I don't know if we have the R Markdown, but we will get there so people can access it. Okay, so if there are no other questions coming through, I mean, if something comes up, as Shazia said, feel free to keep in touch. She's definitely have as a presence online, probably, you know, she has a website, and feel free to get in touch with any one of us if you're interested in joining the committee, as I said, for small or bigger roles, or if you want to learn what we do behind the scene. If there's no other questions or other housekeeping that you can think of, Shazia or Nikki or Alex or Dai, Marie? No? Then thank you again so much, Shazia, for giving us this summary, and thank you a lot. And we will keep posting on Twitter or everywhere slides so that no one loses anything. And everyone have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.